Hi, and welcome to MC Podcast 27. Today in studio, my studio guest is Kyle Vosburgh. We'll also be having a call-in guest this afternoon, Clinton Dall. So glad that you could join us. And Kyle, we're glad that you are finally in the office today.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. That's all we get.
Yeah.
We're glad you're finally in the office. So, actually, I haven't seen you, but I heard you this morning.
Yep.
About a little after 6, roll up the driveway.
Yeah.
And can you say anything other than yeah?
No. Yeah. No. Yeah. I snuck in.
What is that? What is
I don't know.
What is wrong with you today?
There's lack of sleep for the past couple of days, and then I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go deer hunt this morning," even though the little guy's been waking up and sleeping at his leisure. So it's been kind of a couple of days. I mean, I got up this morning and I was like, man, I have a half day to hunt or I have a half day to sleep in. Which one do I want to do? But no, yeah, I snuck in this morning, or snuck in as much as I can before your big dog finds out that somebody.
She didn't bark this morning.
That's because we became friends this morning. So she almost followed me all the way to the deer stand too. I got all the way up to the top of the crest. I turned around, and said, BG, you go back to the house, and she just ran back. I mean, she took off, heading back towards the house, but. I guess she thought we were playing at 6:15 because she just kept running around like I was gonna throw my bow for her to go catch and come back. But yeah, she's I
was right. I heard you pull up the driveway, but I never did hear the dog throw a fit like it did last time. So I thought, well, he must have bought treats today for the dog. So anyway, good. So so didn't do any good this morning.
Nope. Kind of skunked out on it. Like I said, I texted you guys a little bit, and everybody was all excited. The weather changed a lot the past day or two, and we had a big temperature drop and some movement in the barometer, and we all thought deer would be on their feet this morning, and they were. It was just me who was not on my feet.
You were asleep. You took your time to sleep in the stand, maybe?
I may have fallen asleep in the deer stand this morning for a few minutes, but yeah. So by the time I had realized this little buck had walked by. He was looking up at me like, well, should have been ready. See you later. And he just slipped on by today. So we'll meet again, though. I'm sure we will.
Okay. All right. Well, I do want you to know that there was a little bit of sadness and disappointment.
Yeah.
And just feelings of angst for you this morning.
Yeah.
As we knew what was going on. So.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway. I think Kevin was pretty disappointed. I could tell in his text. He was super disappointed.
Yeah.
It was this deer was 6-7 yards from me. Like I told you, I probably could have taken a step off.
This would have been your first.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a gimme. That was the part that's what hurt the most. Not that I saw him and he got away. The fact that it was I could have made the worst shot of my life and still brought him down. Yeah. So.
Well, it happens.
Yep.
It happens. That's why they call it hunting.
Yep.
And so I get it. I get it. We all have bad days. It just seems like you have more bad days than the rest of us.
They seem to run in succession, together.
Yeah.
It's like nearly every hunt. So
it's okay.
Maybe the Lord's just putting it all together, and I'll just get one of those crazy
big booner.
And then you guys will be like, yeah, it was total luck.
It was
total
you didn't
luck.
do anything
to get that.
It was total luck.
Yeah, you didn't deserve that. Yep.
Hey, I'd rather be lucky than good.
Exactly. Yep.
Definitely. I'd rather be lucky than good. So just kind of give us a little update on what's going on with you at work here, and anything new, and where you're at, and just kind of what all's happening there.
Yeah, so we've been back kind of, being off the road here for a couple of weeks. So for R&D guys, we're just kind of recollecting our thoughts together, getting back into, getting all of our data put together. So for me, I kind of put everything together agronomically that I saw, throughout the year and whatnot. We've talked a little bit about those things, but then we're also getting a bunch of silage samples in from different cooperators and things like that. And so that is a long process. I mean, we talk about plot seed being this big, long process, but silage, in the 3 years I've been in R&D, silage sampling has grown almost double every single year.
Sure.
It seems like we're taking more and more on and using more and more
Are you going
labs.
to mail my silage samples this week?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, that's all I need to know. I just want to make sure that you're not going to be standing there.
Yep.
Looking at it and not being able to do anything. This seems to be to be kind of a little habit that you got is, wow, I'm standing here. I'll just let the silage samples walk on by, kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure.
I will make sure they're shipped. But yeah.
Shipped.
Shipped. Yeah, he said shipped.
Okay, just making sure that we're understanding each other. Cool.
But so yeah, I mean that's quite a process. I mean, and like I said, we talk about plot seed, and that does take up a lot of time. But the silage samples and breaking them down, and we've kind of put together a new way of keeping track of them this year that makes it a little easier and faster for you to pull the data together once it comes in. So that's taking up quite a bit. And then I'm still kind of traveling here and there. We all are, on the road, just not like we are in the midsummer. So
right, yeah, yeah. I think I'll be on the road this week. And I'm home for a week.
And guess where this old boy's going?
Yeah, you're finally getting there.
Amarillo, Texas.
You're finally gonna be there.
Yeah. You guys say 3 days. I say we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
It'll be okay. I mean, you'll get there. Unfortunately, you're not going really with anybody who had. You're gonna go meet some guys out there. You're not going with anybody from here.
Yeah.
If it was you and I, then we may have to worry about whether or not it was going to be 3 days or 3 weeks.
There would probably
3 months.
There'd probably be 2 new houses on the market here in the area if we went together.
There could be.
Yep.
Mandy, I'd call my wife, Mandy, let's just pack up and bring them all down.
Yep.
So good. So we've been talking a little bit about the silage samples. Silage harvesting is in the Midwest is full swing, probably towards the downhill swing of that is what we've seen. My understanding is kind of in the Northeast. We're just in the major part of it here and going on. So let's just talk a little bit about what now that we're through this or right at the end of it. Just maybe a few things, just a few quick hitter kind of things of just a little bit about silage harvest and so what we're looking for at silage harvest. What are our goals and how we can help achieve those.
Yeah. So now as we see guys kind of wrapping down, they're all kind of falling into the same area of plant maturity. We like to talk about, and we usually say about 68% is what we like to see whole plant moisture for silage harvest. And I think a lot of guys are kind of rolling into that. Some guys up north, there's a good portion, and I agree with you. We're on the downhill slope. There's a good portion of the country who's done. And they've completed, and honestly, with some of those, southeastern guys, they could be feeding some of their, shop silage here in the next couple of weeks. So, we're kind of now just like looking at those things, and now that we're getting, lab analysis back from silage samples and things like that, we're kind of tying those all together. So I know you've seen a couple of silage samples already.
I have seen a few silage samples. I've seen some out of California. I've seen some out of Illinois here. I think I've seen maybe a couple out of Wisconsin. And, overall things are looking pretty decent. Yeah. I haven't noticed anything just way out of whack this year. It'll be interesting to see what some of the corn silage out of the Northeast is going to do. Yeah. In fact, I got a phone call last week that some of it even got frosted. So really? we had a plot up there that got frosted, and the guy Tracy Neff from Kings who helps us out was calling to say, hey, this got frosted. Do we really want to take it? What's the data going to look like? And I said, for research purposes, it's probably not going to be 1-to-1. We'll be able to see things in that plot maybe, but frosted corn just acts weird.
Yeah,
it just acts weird. And in fact, I would recommend that if a guy thinks it's going to frost and my corn is at 70% moisture or maybe even 72, man, I would go ahead and take it before it gets frosted because it just kills the top part of that plant. If you're lucky, it just kills the top part.
Yeah.
And you get some wonky type fermentation out of it.
Yep.
And it just doesn't seem to feed as well for whatever reason. So I told Tracy, I said, let's go ahead and take those samples and label them frosted so that we know what they are and where they came from, and we can always just pull those out and look at them separately. So we just have a little bit of data of what those kind of things can do.
Yeah, and I think this year, so I haven't really noticed any sort of, that frosting in a plot, but like in a larger region, I don't think I've noticed anything that's really been kind of a weather pattern or system that could affect quality. So like last year in the Northeast, like New York especially had a really severe drought.
Right.
But I really haven't noticed that too much this year. And a lot of the southern rust issues that affected southeastern and a little bit of the southern Midwest. Quality issues last year, again, didn't really happen. So I'm thinking as a whole in the country, quality should be up.
So I think it
coming from an agronomy standpoint.
I think it'll probably be if we could use the term normal. You know, pretty normalized. I do think that we'll see some good starch numbers, the amount of starch, it'll be interesting to see when all silage samples kind of come back in, what fiber numbers do this year. And maybe, you know, like you said, you know, in the Northeast last year we had droughty conditions, and so that fiber digestibility is definitely higher. It'll be interesting to see kind of where everything kind of lays this year, but I think we'll be pretty much so right in that normal range is what I would assume is probably just from the indicators that I've had so far. So so we talk about taking silage. We wanted it, you know, between 68 and 65% moisture. Okay, and why do we want silage taken there?
Excuse me. So that's a good whole plant moisture.
Right.
You know, you don't want it too dry. You don't want it too wet. I know you've always kind of told me, you know, to err on the side of too wet than to go too dry.
Right.
Traditionally. So, and that's just kind of what I've always been taught, you know, is to just try to take it and you would think that 3% is a small number, but there's actually a time frame between there where you have the time to get it and take it most of the time. So
definitely, yeah, and so I mean, you know, when we're sitting there at 68 to 65% moisture, we're looking at the optimum silage quality as far as amount of starch, as far as the fiber quality, the digestibility of the fiber, the digestibility of the starch. We're looking at that kind of being the optimum window there for the highest of all of them. Yeah. You know, I can let corn silage get a little drier than that, and the amount of starch that I have goes up. Now, that's going to affect the digestibility of the fiber, and it's going to affect the digestibility of the starch if I let things get too dry. If I get them too wet, I don't have enough starch in there. Yep. You know, my fiber digestibility will be good, my starch digestibility will be good, but I just won't have enough starch there to really produce a lot of good energy. You know, starch being that most energy-dense section of the or component or part of corn silage. You know, there's more energy in a pound of corn than there is a pound of leaves and stems and material there. Yep. And so there's a tension and a balance that we've got to walk with that, where I've got enough starch, but I want to keep everything digestible. Yep. You know, I could have a lot of starch, but then again, I'm going to affect the digestibility of those things. And so, you know, so we talk a lot about the quality of these things. You know, as guys are going through their fields and they're chopping and they're measuring, you know, tons in that. From the agronomy side, what are some things that next year maybe guys can do to increase that tonnage? What are a few things, a few, you know, as you think about it? Okay, here are 3 or 4 kind of points that are going to help increase silage yield next year. Yeah.
So from a yield standpoint, I mean, we have genetics that we've traditionally see that push on the tonnage side. You know, we brought in a new hybrid MCT 6653 this year, and it feeds really well, but it's always been impressive on tonnage. I mean, we've even had that with some shorter season stuff like 4572. You know, time and time again, you know, they've been, you know, impressive on the yield side. So sometimes picking those hybrids that maybe your dealer pushes you towards that he knows have a little bit more top end yield. And then also, you know, being able to kind of add to your nutrient package and whatnot. I know, you know, grain guys always talk about, you know, nitrogen application, and it's just as important in silage. Right. Timeliness and nitrogen. I mean, and you talk about it a little bit. I think on the fiber side, there's a little bit of
well, it's usually overfeeding nitrogen can actually increase the proline and protein in grain. So it has more to do with the amount, because nitrogen gets taken up into the plant and it expresses itself as protein, right? And so those proteins a lot. So I can starve a plant of nitrogen, and I can make that grain really soft and floury way reducing yields.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when I'm putting that nitrogen on, corn is a luxury feeder of nitrogen. It'll just keep taking up nitrogen as long as it's there. And so I want to work that balance out. You're exactly right. I want to have enough nitrogen there to have good yields, but I don't want to overfeed that nitrogen that I may affect some of the quality of that plant.
Yep. Yeah. So, nitrogen application and using it at a timely rate and, in a timely manner. And then anytime you're building organic matter and things like that, using a cover crop, which, that's kind of there's kind of a luxury and then a non-luxury, I guess you could say, in the dairy industry. So one hurdle I always come into talking to guys is they can't rotate crops. So we deal a lot of times with guys who do corn on corn. But they also oftentimes will plant a winter crop, especially if it's something that they can take off in the spring as, like a haylage or even sometimes things that they have around. I mean, like a dairyman's barn, a guy who runs a dairy, who plants his own crops, a lot of times it can look like, like a farm store because he has so many different crops and seeds and things like that, especially depending on how he's mixing his ration. So anything you can do in the winter to keep that ground from being dormant or laying dormant can also help to improve the yields the next year. Having active soil over the winter and preparing yourself into spring, it can definitely help.
Yeah, definitely. And then, like you say, a lot of times we can take those off in the spring and add tonnage to that acre. And also, whenever we get something else there are benefits from a different root structure, a different type of thing, where we can kind of eliminate some of those pressures, break down some of that corn residue that's left in that field, and that way we don't have quite as many issues as what we could have had we not. So I think you're exactly right. I think for a guy to go in and especially those dairies that have limited acreage where they can't rotate those crops as much as they would like, to go in with a crop, a cover crop, and a forage cover crop there in the fall, in doing that. And so guys probably can be looking at that if they haven't thought about that already as they've pulled their silage off. So we got Clinton Dall going to be calling in here, and we're going to be talking to him. Clinton Dall is a custom harvester out of Central Illinois, and so we're going to give him a call and bring him into this conversation and get some points of view from Clinton. All right, on the line now we have Clinton Dall from Central Illinois, and Clinton, we appreciate you calling in and kind of giving us a little bit of a sneak peek of the things that you've been seeing out on the farm. Tell us a little bit about your operation, and then also about your farm, your family dairy.
Well, my name's Clinton Dall. I'm the owner of Highline Ag. We do custom bagging, cell plastic, and those sorts of things, do custom harvesting in the fall. We're also in Dall Dairy, been a family dairy farm since 1928. About it. What do you got, Mark?
Yeah, I'm here.
So we've been custom harvesting this fall, did a lot of bagging, a lot of salad shopping, things like that. What do you want to know?
Well, I just kind of want to get your take on what you've seen out of silage this year. How have the silage yields been where you've been harvested?
Well, we were kind of in a changeover area. About 5 miles north of us, we've seen guys with 25, 30 ton an acre corn solids with 250 bushel of corn, and 5 miles south of us, we've seen guys that had 4 and 5 foot tall corn with no ears. And right where we were right in the transition zone. So we've seen both extremes this year, and it's been kind of a hit and miss year all over the place as far as silage. As far as quality goes, everybody's had some very digestible silage. Doesn't mean there's been a lot of starch in it this year, but there's definitely a lot of good fiber digestibility in the silage from the tests I've been seeing.
Well, good. And so how wide of an area, Clinton, do you cover as far as with your custom harvesting? Is it just a few counties, or is it larger than that?
We sell plastic all the way into Indiana, Missouri, Kentucky, and all the way up to Springfield, Illinois.
Okay.
the custom silage bagging and chopping, we're going all the way to Springfield, Illinois, all the way down to the southern tip of Illinois, down in Gore Hill and things like that.
Okay.
So we get kind of all over the place. We even made it to southern Missouri this year with bagging.
Oh wow! So when you're bagging, you're also chopping that.
Some of it, I'd say 70% of it's just us doing the custom bagging. Another 30% we work with custom harvesters in the area. We set it up to, if we're going to do all the chopping, hauling, bagging, or if we're going to do some of each, kind of split it up. Each scenario is a little bit different. Depends what the farmer wants. A lot of guys in the past years were going all 100% trucks and choppers with the dump table baggers and truck dump baggers. And now we're starting to see farmers coming back to side unload and buying new wagons and things like that. Seems like they're trying to save some money and put some of that back in their own pocket.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Clinton, give us a little bit of a feel and an understanding of why would a farmer go to bags? What's the benefit he gets out of a bag over a silo or a bunker, or a drive over pile? What's he getting as a benefit from those bags?
Oh, what we see for the guys that we service, for the size they are and for the area and the climate we're in, they like the bags because 10 minutes from the time that load of corn silage has been chopped, it's been packed, compressed, and it's in an airtight system. It's in the bag. A lot of guys don't want to invest in a big concrete pad, and they don't like the shrink they get or the spoilage that they get with the piles. Guys are leaning more towards bags and more away from silos, just because the initial investment of a silo seems to be $100,000 or more. And then after you have that, you've got no flexibility except to go back to bags. So we've got a lot of guys going to bags, and seems like everybody that's ever built a bunker or a silo has always come back to bagging as well.
Yeah.
It's just the speed and the ease, and it's less labor. When you got the bagger running, you pull up alongside, you unload it. You don't have to worry about if it got packed correctly, if somebody graded it correctly, or none of those things. Once it's in the bag, it's pretty much been taken care of.
That makes sense. What as far as bagging, can you take silage that's too wet, too dry? Is there a benefit in the bag if you've got some silage that's either too wet or too dry? Is there some benefit there?
Yeah. So depending on how the rations work, and this is coming off our farm and a few guys that we've been doing business with for many years, we'll come in the beginning of the year, beginning of the season, and we'll chop one bag wet. We're talking maybe 71 moisture or so.
Okay.
And we'll take that one, and then we'll come back a couple weeks later, 2 weeks later maybe, and when that silage is in that 65 to 67 range, and we'll commence the chopping, and right at the end of the season, we'll chop a whole bag that's dry. It's about 60 moisture, just so we have a balancing act, because we're switching from new corn silage, old corn silage, wet, dry. You never know what you're going to see throughout the season. It's kind of a balancing act. That, and guys that have bunkers have to chop it wetter so they can get it compacted.
Right.
And then guys that are going to put in baggers, you kind of need it in the middle. And same with silos, you can't put it up too wet in those too, or you have issues. So you can do a lot more with a bagger than you can versus piles or silos.
Okay. So did I understand you right? There is a threshold there where it could be too wet for a bag.
Yeah, it could be too wet. I mean, once you hit that 70, 71 moisture, that's about as wet as you want to put it into a bag. I mean, you have great starch digestibility of that moisture, and it works really well for putting in a bunker at that moisture.
Right.
But for that moisture for a bag, it's too much, and you don't want your bags the leachate coming out of your bags and those kinds of things.
Okay.
So the threshold we like to see is between, I'd say, 63 to 68 and 69 moisture going into a bag. That seems like that works really well. You have no leakage from the bag. You got really good fermentation. You got enough moisture in there so you can feed, your dry stuffs, your dry grains, your hays, things like that. It makes it work for the ration.
Yeah, I could see how in a bag that something at 63 or 62% moisture would definitely be better fermented than something at that moisture that's in a bunk or something that you would have to drive over and you can get a more complete, better fermentation out of that. That does make a lot of sense. So Clint, tell us a little bit about you told us somewhat about your family dairy, where and about how you all kind of manage those bags. How many cows are you all milking on your family dairy?
Right now, I just looked today. I think we were milking 357, and by the end of the year, we're looking to be milking over 400 with all the calvings. And we've been milking here, like I said, since 1928. Dad's he's the main guy here at the farm. He's kind of he's the manager. I guess I'm the manager underneath of him, and then I also run the Highline Ag side, the custom bagging, harvesting, and plastic and seed sales.
Okay.
We also have two herdsmen here. We got one herdsman that's actually retiring this year after being here for 17 years, and then the other guy's taking over for him. So we've been blessed with employees to have them, good employees for a long, long time. Anything else you want to know about the farm or?
Well, yeah. So the employee thing kind of sparked my interest there. What do you think has been the key to keep? Because I think that if you look at the dairy industry overall, having the employee turnover is really pretty it's really pretty fast and can be detrimental in some ways. What for you? What was the key for keeping your herdsman there for 17 years?
Well, whenever we hired him, we had a certain rules that we wanted him to abide by, but then we also wanted him to implement his own rules and his own ideas into the workplace. So to be able to give him ownership. So he looks back at his herd, and we've had talks all year long, because he is going to retire in December, that he feels like he's part of the operation. He's part of our herd, and he's a huge part of our success on our dairy farm. And a lot of the guys look up to him here. I look up to him. He's been here for 17 years, so he's been here for as long as I've been here with the farm and helping my dad. And he's just been a really integral part. We didn't think we were going to be able to find somebody to fill his shoes, but luckily we have found a guy, and he's been here for about a year and a half, catching up with him and with the other milkers and employees that are here too. I think all the other guys have been here between 7 and 8 years.
Wow.
And we don't have a lot of employee turnover. It's just we give them some, make them feel like they're part of the group, and everybody has input, and nobody gets stepped on or pushed over. Everybody has a foot to stand on around here. That's
awesome. Clinton, I'm just gonna let it end with that, because that was just such a great way to end it. Your business is successful, your farm is successful, you're the way that you manage people there, it just sounds wonderful. So Clinton, appreciate you calling in, appreciate you giving us your perspective there. Any last word? I'll give you the last word. Any last word you want to add?
Hopefully we're going into a good sales season this fall, and hopefully the harvest season's going to go well for everyone with grain, and hopefully the silage season's over, because I'm ready to put the baggers in the shed.
There you go. Sounds good, Clint. Hey, appreciate you, bud. You take care of yourself, all right?
Yep, thanks, Mark.
All right, take care. With Clinton, man, what a great. I guess I'll use that kind of Baptist Christian term, church term. What a great testimony, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, just what a great view on his family dairy. Good information about bags, but just a guy whose family dairy, they've had the herdsman there for 17 years. Their milkers have been there 7 or 8 years, giving them ownership of the farm, making them feel part of a team. Man, that really resonates with me, and I think it will a lot of people. So just kind of wrap it up. I gave Clinton the last word before he hung up. Any last words about anything that we've been talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully everybody kind of, rolls through the end of silage harvest. As he said, a lot of grain guys are moving. I know right across from where your farm is, they're starting to take corn out. So, yep. We just hope, and everybody here at Master's Choice just hopes that everybody has the blessings of a good harvest this year and whatnot. And we're just hoping that we move forward into the fall and winter, at a good time. And
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Kyle, for joining us today. Appreciate you guys out there listening. Appreciate you listening in, commenting, giving us some feedback. You can remember that we are social. You can always find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. And by the way, just a little plug there. We increased subscribers substantially over the last couple of weeks to our YouTube channel. And so just kind of a shout out, congratulations to our marketing team there. What a great bunch of guys and putting out just some quality stuff. You can find us on YouTube, but also you can always get us at seedcorn.com.